We're setting up a custom build bike workshop, and we're going to break down all the expenses of setting up a bike shop in 2025. So you can let us know in the comments if you think if this is a terrible idea or not. So what exactly is it that we are setting up? Well, if you haven't already heard, we are starting Crafted Cycles, which is going to be a custom build workshop so that you can buy a bike in what we think is the only way that you should be buying a bike. We think the traditional model of how you buy bikes is very outdated, and the bikes that come out the box with components on it that you don't really want or that don't fit you and make for an uncomfortable ride is the wrong way to buy a bike. It's an expensive way to buy a bike, and it leaves you with having to change out components or suffer with a suboptimal bike fit. So what we are going to do is be able to stock a range of brands of frames and a range of brand of components where you can piece together your ideal bike that fits you perfectly, that has all the components on it that you want, that suits your riding needs, and importantly, matches your bike fit. And we believe that is the perfect way to buy a bike. So to give you an idea as to where all these expenses are going to be going, we first need to tell you a little bit about our project and what it's going to involve, and a little bit about the space that we're going to be working with. So we have taken on a new building or a new space that is adjoining to our current Bike Fit studio that I'm sat in now. We're in Matlock, Derbyshire in the UK, and the space consists of, at the moment, 2 main rooms. We are undergoing some renovations at the moment, which we'll talk about later in terms of the expenses of that. But the floor plan, which should be on screen now, should give you a bit of an idea of the space that we're working with. So we're going to have a small bathroom, we're going to have a main workshop area with obviously lots of storage and workbenches and everything else that entails, which again we'll come to later. And then we're also going to have a divided space, which is going to be for consultations with our mechanic about what you want from your bike. And it's just in general going to be a nice comfy space that you can view some bikes that we'll have on display and talk about nice fancy bike things. So the first expense that we're going to talk about is to do with the building itself, and obviously at the moment there are a lot of renovations that need doing, and maybe we can overlay some footage of the building as it is in its current state, and you can see like how much work there is ahead of us to get that sorted. We are very lucky that we have probably the best landlord in the country, and he is doing a lot of work for us to turn this building or this space into what we want. So it's almost purpose built for us, which is incredible. So a lot of that work involves we're having a new entrance fitted, a new entrance doorway fitted, which involves taking a window out and drilling some brick out and having some walls down inside as well. So we're changing the layout of the space, the layout of the rooms. We're having things like an outdoor tap fitted, which is going to be useful for cleaning down bikes in an outdoor space. So there's a lot of work that's going to be involved, which again our landlord is helping with very, very kindly. But that does still leave us with a lot of other expenses to do with the building itself. And the first main one of those is security. So we're going to need shutters on windows, shutters on doors, and we're going to need some sort of camera security system to protect the building, because unfortunately bike shops or anywhere that stores bikes is usually targeted. So we need to protect ourselves. And whilst we haven't had exact quotes for this yet, the rough cost of all of this is going to be around £5,500. So that covers the windows and doors shutters, the security camera system, and a few other bits and bobs that we are having to make sure the building is secured. So next up, we're going to move inside the building now and talk about some fixtures and fittings that we're obviously going to need to make this into a workshop and a custom build workshop in a nice space that we can use for consultations as well. So this is going to include things like our main cost, which is going to be our workbench and storage spaces for tools, and all the fixtures and fittings around the workshop itself, like shelving and cupboards and little things like that all add up in terms of cost. But it's also going to include seating, it's going to include TVs, it's going to include like display cabinets and display units that we'll use to display some fancy bikes and fancy products, and just more storage that we're going to need to keep all of our workshop tools and bits and bobs in stock in the building. And all of that, again, roughly is going to come to around £3,500 just for the fixtures and fittings, which is, quite a lot before we've even started kitting this out with any tools. So obviously these are a one-off expense, and a lot of this is assets to the business. So they'll stay under the business's ownership. So this isn't exactly like lost money. This is, we're buying in and investing in this sort of thing. But upfront, these startup costs is all money that we need to find before we even start making any money ourselves through any bike sales or servicing. So that covers a lot of the fixtures and fittings within the workshop itself. So now let's talk about tools. And this is really exciting to me because we have not skimped out on tools at all. We obviously want this workshop to be kitted out with all the best stuff, all the best components. We want our mechanic to have everything available that he needs to be able to work on bikes to the best of his ability. And the tooling and stands and things like that is really important to a mechanic so that you can be able to work efficiently and functionally and have everything that you need at your disposal. So this is somewhere where we haven't saved any money. We've actually gone and got the best stuff that we can find because we think that's really important to the business. So some of the key things that we're going to be talking about here are big things like parts washers, which we're going to have in the workshop. Nice bike stands, air compressors, these big things that do actually cost quite a lot of money. We're not just talking about a few Allen keys here and some spanners. There is a lot more that goes on within a bike workshop versus your home mechanic setup. So those are some of the bigger items that we are lumping into our tool costs, but actually the tools themselves as a collective still cost more than all of those things I just mentioned. And again, part of the reason is that we've not skimped out, we're going for the best. We've been able to get all of our tools through Park Tool. So obviously well renowned as one of the best tool companies out there. And this is almost just like the starter kit or the starter tools that we need to be able to get this thing off the ground. As we go along, there are going to be new tools that we need with all different standards of things like bottom brackets, and there's going to be different specific tools that we need for specific customers' bikes that we're going to have to just buy as we go along. But this is just the sort of tools that we need to get going. And all of this is going to come to around £9,500. And Chris, the camera guy's face, as I've said that number, is just screwed up. So as you can see, that is a lot of money. But again, I think this is really important to the business that we have some quality equipment, quality tooling, so that our mechanic can work on bikes in the best way possible. And that's really important to us. So just before we move on to the next section, just a couple of other things related to the building. We've got some signage that we're obviously going to need. And we've got some IT equipment, so a couple of laptops, one for the workshop, one for payment systems, and insurance, which is a big one for any sort of bike shop or workshop. And all in total, for all of that combined, we're probably looking at around £3,000 per year. So again, it's another chunky bit of money that we are going to be paying out. But again, really important, all the stuff we need. We need laptops, we need signage, and we definitely need insurance. So the next section we're going to talk about is going to be staff costs. But before we do, if you are enjoying hearing about how empty my bank account is going to be, please go and subscribe to the Crafted Cycles YouTube channel. There'll be a link down in the description below. And on that channel, we're going to post some dream build videos, some mechanic tips and tricks, some little first person shoots of a mechanic at work, and lots of bike reviews and product reviews. So if you're interested in any of that, go and follow or subscribe to Crafted Cycles, and all of that content will be on there in the coming weeks. So now on to the biggest expense in most businesses, and that is staff. Now, we are very fortunate in that we've got an incredible mechanic lined up to not only be the mechanic in the workshop, but actually to run the business and run the workshop as a whole. And we're really, really excited and fortunate to have him with us, and you will see more of him in a video later down the line. To protect our mechanic, we're not obviously going to say his exact salary because that's not very fair. But the average salary for a mechanic in the UK at the moment, at the time of recording, is between £24,000 and £30,000 a year. Again, our mechanic is going to have a little bit more responsibilities than a standard mechanic, so we have to bear that in mind. But that's the sort of price we'll be looking at per year to employ our mechanic and workshop manager. Now we're going to talk about our recurring expenses every month. So these are all our sort of monthly subscriptions. Our rent is going to be in here. We're talking about utility bills. We're talking about website management, payment system charges, accountancy fees. What else have I missed out? And any customer relations management. So anything that we use for like marketing and email marketing. And of course, our camera guy, Chris, who's sat behind the camera, his salary of £300,000 a month is going to be in this chunk of money as well. So if you haven't thought about buying a bike yet, please buy a bike from us so we can afford to pay Chris's salary. Right, the monthly cost for all of those things is going to be roughly £1,200 to £1,400 a month, depending on the month, which again is a serious chunk of money. When you extrapolate that across the year, that's going to be, what, off the top of my head, it's going to be about £14,000 per year, just to keep all of those things running and to pay our rent. The next bunch of expenses that I want to talk about is marketing, and thought about putting this in with our recurring costs because it is a recurring cost. We will be doing marketing consistently throughout the year, but I wanted to separate it just because I think marketing is really important from a business point of view, and I know a lot of businesses don't do marketing and I've never really understood that. So I think it's really important that it has its own budget and it's a protected budget. You don't sort of use it for anything else, it's just for marketing. So our budget for marketing is going to be around £350 to £450 each month, depending on what we do. And this is going to cover social media ads, it's going to cover content creation, it's going to cover creating videos like this. So we're going to do exactly the same that we've done for UK Bike Fit, and we're going to do that over there at Crafted Cycles as well. Those are all our main costs of actually running the business and setting it up. But there is one big cost that a lot of people don't think about when they think about starting a business like this or any business, and that is opening stock. In the cycling industry, a lot of brands require you to put money up front or to buy in a certain level of stock for you to sell that brand and be able to be a stockist of that brand. So there's a considerable amount of money or expenditure or investment, I should say, that goes into buying stock upfront before the business is even making any money. So we're going to talk about the bike brand buy-ins, and we're incredibly excited about our brands. I just can't wait to talk about the brands. We're definitely going to do a separate video on the bike brands themselves when we can release that information, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to talk about the bike brand buy-ins and then also our opening inventory. So for servicing and mechanic work, we obviously need an inventory of things like cassettes, chains, brake pads, bottom brackets, cables, housing, bar tape, like all your standard stuff that a mechanic workshop needs to stock that it might just need at any time when someone brings their bike in, and all of that stuff costs money. And again, these are assets that we're buying in that we're obviously going to sell on for some profit. So whether you call that as an expense or not, it's still money that you have to put in up front to be able to start your workshop. Now, all of that together, I'm not going to mention any exact figures of what we're spending on our brands in particular, but all of that together is around £13,000 of stock that we need to start with. We can't start a workshop without all of that and without any bikes to show off. So that is again a huge chunk of money that we're putting in up front to be able to open. I feel like this video is just going to put anyone off from ever starting a bike shop or a workshop. That can go in. The very last thing that I want to mention is the time expenditure that this needs. And I don't really know how to put this across without just sounding like I'm whining or moaning, but you know, I chose this life for myself, so I've only got myself to blame. But this does take a hell of a lot of time and effort and energy to set up, and you know, it's taken me away from my day job, if you like, as a bike fitter and business owner of UK Bike Fit. So I'm having to sacrifice a lot of that time and redirect that energy into setting up a new business. And you know, it's not a monetary expense, but it does cost a lot in terms of, like I say, energy and stress and anxiety. And you know, as you just heard, we're spending a hell of a lot of money setting this up. So I'd like to think that I'm pretty confident that it's going to work, otherwise I wouldn't have taken this risk. but it's still a massive risk in terms of financial risk. So, you know, there's a time cost and an energy cost to doing this as well. So now that's all made you feel really, really sorry for me, that's hopefully going to encourage you to come and be a customer of Crafted Cycles when we eventually open. So again, if you want to keep tabs on what we're doing and how the progress is coming along, keep following the UK Bike Fit YouTube channel, and definitely go and follow Crafted Cycles YouTube channel and Instagram page for all the latest updates. As a summary then, the money that we've talked about can be split into sort of two. We've got the initial investment in actually getting things off the ground and getting things started, and then we've got our monthly recurring costs that are going to be a constant as we go through the business's lifespan. So that initial investment is coming to around £33,000 in the way that we've set up this business, and then on top of that, like I say, we've got our monthly recurring payments as well. So whether you think that's a lot or not a lot, whether that was more or less than you were expecting, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know if you think I'm making a massive mistake, or actually if you think this has got a chance of working, and I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. Either way, don't be shy. So please leave a comment down below.